Hello and welcome to our JOFA webinar. I'm thrilled to be here this evening with a former Rebbe of mine, Rabbi Kahn, who teaches at Stern College for Women and the GPATS program, the graduate program for advanced Talmud studies at Stern College at Yeshiva University. He's also a licensed psychoanalyst in private practice. And tonight we're here to talk about birth control and autonomy in making decisions about having first children, family planning, or what have you. And before anything else, I do want to note that we do have some events coming up. This Motzei Shabbat, we're having kashyas and cocktails about a place to discuss and help destigmatize the singles community. It's in Washington Heights. Information is on our Facebook page and our website. And there's a lot going on, so make sure you're following us on Facebook and Twitter and on our email list and all those good things. Thank you, Rabbi Kahn, for being here this evening. It's nice to be able to learn from you this evening. Before we jump into your delivering this year, I was wondering if you could help us understand what motivated you to explore this topic. I think that's, yeah. Why this topic? How did it interest you?
Well, I've been teaching women for about over 30 years, and women have come to me from Stern College asking me questions about birth control, etc. And I think also my second profession of being a psychotherapist, psychoanalyst, made me far more sensitive to issues that affect women and men, and specifically about issues of birth control. I feel that there's a lot of potential for harm that could come when couples feel pressured into having children when they don't feel fully ready, and they feel that they have to because they're told that the halacha dictates that they have to, and they're forced into a situation that can be harmful. And what people do, whether people are machmir or mekil, if there are no harmful consequences, so then people can choose as they wish. But in this area, I think having more information as to what exactly the halacha is, what is asur, what is mutar, and so on, can be helpful for a lot of people who feel the pressure. And one person's slight anxiety, is one thing, but someone else could have, a great deal of emotional torment.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, should there be just one policy for everyone, or does the halacha allow for differences and different approaches so that people can make a decision that is best for them? And I think that's what really inspired me to look into this topic more. And I researched it about 8-9 years ago, and I decided to write an article.
Okay, I'm gonna let you go ahead and we'll jump in.
So what I'd like to discuss, in the short time that we have, are two main issues. One of them is delaying the mitzvah of pru'urvu. Is that permitted or not? A very straightforward question. A couple gets married. Are they obligated to start having a family immediately, or are they allowed to delay? That is one issue. That's more of the halakhic, that's a major halakhic part of the discussion. But also, what I also want to discuss is the role of the rabbi, of the rav, in this issue. It's, in this particular area of halakha, it's a rather unique situation where couples, at least in the Orthodox world, many couples feel that they're not allowed to delay in the mitzvah unless they get a heter from a Rav, which, one has to ask oneself, well, what do you mean get a heter? I mean, is one allowed to delay or is one not allowed to delay? So if one is allowed to delay, then you don't need a heter. And if you're not allowed to delay, then Rabbanim can't be matir what is forbidden. So what exactly is this whole idea of going to a Rav, asking for a heter? And is it advisable to go to a Rav to ask for a heter? What exactly are the consequences of that? Mm-hmm. So let's first address the issue of, is a delay in the mitzvah of pruruvu permitted or not? Now, when we talk about a mitzvah saseh, we know that there are two categories of mitzvahs in the Torah: a lo sasa, the negative commandments, and the aseh, and the positive commandments. Within the list of the positive commandments, that can be broken down into two parts. You have those mitzvahs aseh, which are time bound, which can only be fulfilled during that particular time. For example, eating matzah Pesach night, of course, the mitzvah is only then. If you slept through the night and it's the next day, you missed out on the mitzvah of eating matzah. And then you have mitzvahs which are not time bound. And that's where the mitzvah of pruruvu falls. Because, yes?
Is it worth noting the differentiation between what sex you are and pruruvu?
Yes, that the mitzvah of pruruvu only applies to men.
Right.
Which is so interesting, that women are not obligated to have children. Only, of course, they assist the man, but it's basically...
more than assist. But.
More than assist, you're right. They're the enablers, but the actual mitzvah is on the men only.
Can I ask you, do you ever see it, is it generally couples who are asking this question, or men only, since it's technically their obligation, or you haven't seen any sort of, is it generally the couple?
I think it's the couple. The one who, who asked the question might be one of them, but I think it's when a couple wants to delay, I think it's both,
Mm-hmm.
So.
It takes two to tango. Okay.
Yeah. So the question is a delay permitted or not? Mm-hmm. So there are three issues, I think three halakhic issues that need to be addressed. And they're all discussed by poskim. And the question will be exactly what these poskim are saying, what the issues are, and how we paskin. One issue, which to me is the most important one, is the following. When you have a mitzvah that is not time-bound, so for example, pruruvu, if a young man fulfilled the mitzvah, or if an older man fulfilled the mitzvah, the kiyum ha-mitzvah is exactly the same. Mm-hmm. So the fact that a person might have delayed, once he fulfills the mitzvah, his kiyum is 100% no different than if he fulfilled the mitzvah at the age of 20. So the question is delaying a mitzvah that is not time bound, for the time that you delay, is it considered as if you are canceling the mitzvah? Which is a very interesting issue. In other words, whenever you'll fulfill the mitzvah, let's say you'll have fulfilled it, but for the time of the delay, is that time that you delayed, do we look at it as though you are canceling the mitzvah every single day that you delay, or not? Do we view...
Are there other examples of mitzvot in this category?
Well, any mitzvah saseh, she'en azman grama, that is not time bound, the same question could be asked. Okay. Anyone. Of course, we're asking it on this one because that's the topic of discussion. Yeah. Now, here, the Chazon Ish discusses it at great length, and he concludes, and I can't go through all the specifics, it's in my article, for those who are interested. But the Chazon Ish concludes that it is not considered to be a bittul ha'aseh. That's the lashon that is used. It's not considered that through the delay that you're being mavato, canceling the mitzvah aseh. It's not. You're just delaying. So if you never fulfilled the mitzvah, then fine, then you were mavato the aseh. But whenever you'll fulfill the mitzvah, you'll have fulfilled it, and the delay itself is not considered a bittul of the aseh. This is what the Chazon Ish concludes. But if you examine some of the Rishonim, I'm going to quote from the Rambam and the Rush. You will see that actually this can be a machlokas harishonim as to whether, again, delaying in a mitzvah saseh shein azman grama, that is not time bound, is a delay considered a bittul of the aseh. Mm-hmm. And the Rambam, which I'll quote from, this is the Rambam in Hilchos Ishus. I'm just going to read the relevant part. Says the following: the kevan she'avru esrim shana, that if a man has already reached the age of 20, v'lo nasa isha, and he did not marry, harei ze over u'mevatel mitzvah saseh. Behold, this person has violated and has canceled the mitzvah saseh of having children. Now, the Rambam knows very well that if he, at the age of 30, he had children, then he was makayim the mitzvah. So when the Rambam writes by the age of 20, if he hasn't married, he's mevatel the aseh, what he sounds like he's saying, not sounds like he is saying, that a delay in the mitzvah is considered a bittul of that mitzvah. Even though if later on you fulfill the mitzvah, you will fulfill it then, but during the time of the delay, it's considered a bittul. However, this is the Rambam. However, if you take a look at the Rush in Yevamos, if you listen to the language of the Rush, he says the following: Misha avru alav esrim shana, if someone has already reached 20 years of age, ve'eno rotzeh lisa isha, and he doesn't want to marry. Sheyichpuhu bezdin lisa l'kayim pirya v'rivya. So the Rush writes, bezdin can compel the person to get married in order to fulfill the mitzvah of pruravu. Now, if you compare the two, the Rambam and the Rush, the language that they both use, I'll just go over again. The Rambam's language was, Kevan sha'avru esrim shana, since he reached the age of 20, v'lo nasa isha, and he did not yet marry. Mm-hmm. He did not marry, then he's mevatel the aseh. The Rush's language is, Misha avru alav esrim shana, he has reached 20, ve'eno rotza lisa isha, he doesn't want to get married.
So what does that mean?
Okay, so what does that mean? He doesn't want to get married at the age of 20, but he wants to get married at the age of 21. Like, what does the Rush mean when he writes he doesn't want to marry? Because the Rambam just says he didn't marry yet. He's 20 and he's not married. Like, he should be married already by the age of 20. So the Rambam writes, you're not married yet, so you're mevatel the aseh. The Rush writes that he's 20 and he doesn't want to marry. And actually, and if you look in Shulchan Aruch, in Even HaEzer, Siman Aleph, the Shulchan Aruch codifies the law not according to the Rambam, but according to the Rush. The Shulchan Aruch uses, and I'll read it in a moment, he uses the exact same language that the Rush did. And I'll read to you the relevant sentence. Misha avru alav esrim shana, ve'eno rotze lisa. Somebody is 20 years old, and he doesn't want to get married, Bezdin kofeno soli so'akadei l'kayim mitzvahs pirya v'rivya. Bezdin has the right to compel him to get married in order to fulfill the mitzvah. So I know it's very, I mean, we know that the Shulchan Aruch very often, so many times, follows the Rambam even word for word. And here he doesn't. And he follows the Rush. And the one who picked up on this is the Pischei Tshuva. And he cites from the Maharikash, who was Rabbi Yaakov Castro, who was from Cairo. And he actually was an acquaintance with Rav Yosef Karo. He visited Sfas, and I think he stayed in the home of Rav Yosef Karo. So they had contact, and he writes that he's medayik in the language of the Shulchan Aruch, which is exactly a copy of the Rush. That when the Shulchan Aruch and the Rush wrote, ve'eno rotza lisa, that he doesn't want to marry, he understood, Rav Yaakov Castro, the Marikash, understood it to mean that he doesn't ever want to marry. He just doesn't want to get married. He wants to remain a bachelor for his whole life. And the Marikash then adds, Demashma she'im rotza, but if the person really wants to get married, ela shemisakev ad sheyimtza zivug na'ah, but he's waiting until he finds the right shidduch, the right person, o l'siba acheres, or there's some other reason why he wants to wait, lo kaifinan le, then Bezdin has no right to compel him to get married. And the Otsar HaPoskim quotes this Maharikash, and it makes it even sharper because the language of the Marikash is that Bezdin does not compel him. But it leaves open the question, well, okay, maybe they don't compel him, but maybe he's wrong for doing it.
Right.
And if you look in the Otsar HaPoskim, who quotes the Maharikash, they use the word it's permitted. That if he simply wants to delay, either because he hasn't found the right person yet or some other reason why he wants to delay, he is permitted to do so. So this is what in the Pischei Tshuva in Shulchan Aruch quotes this. And this is how they understand the Machaber, the Shulchan Aruch. So, which would be against the Shitas HaRambam. So it's clear to me that the Shulchan Aruch has paskined against the Rambam and is following the Shita of the Rush, that if a person wants to delay, either because he hasn't found the right person or because of some other reason, he is permitted to do so. So this to me was a very, very powerful point that that a delay is not forbidden.
Right.
It's not viewed as a bittul of the mitzvah saseh of prurvu.
Can I ask one?
Yes.
One question in terms of clarification. We're saying age 17 chuppah or 20. In today's world,
right,
17 and 20 are just different maturity.
That I have no idea how to address that. I mean, obviously the age of, well, maybe in the Hasidic world, they still try to keep that. But in the modern Orthodox world, the ages have been, moved forward. But I don't know.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone will, I don't hear people talking by the age of 24, you have to be married. I've heard people say it, but I don't think that that's something that even Rabbanim will get up and talk about. Will say that you have to be married by a certain age. Although I have heard people talk like that, but I don't see that as the big push. I think there's an encouragement to get married as soon as one can for a lot of reasons. Because being celibate and so on is hard, and so from people to be single is difficult. So there's certainly a push to get married just from that alone. As far as the particular age, That's an issue that I really can't address.
I just figured it was worth clarifying.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard people talk about the age of 24, but I don't know if anyone really pushes that so much today. Because I think everyone realizes, especially in the modern Orthodox world, where there's people are pursuing an education, they want to go through college, and there's graduate school. So things are pushed off, and I think marriage is one of those things that is pushed off, at least after college or even during college, but certainly not at the age of 17. When you're just out of high school in the modern Orthodox camp, you don't see that. At least I don't think so. Okay, so that was, this to me was the most important issue in terms of whether a delay is asur or mutar. The second issue is, okay, maybe it's not asur, but maybe not delaying is preferable because of a different concept that we have, which is reason makdimin lemitzvah, which means that conscientious people who want to do the mitzvah, who want to fulfill the Torah, try to do it as quickly as possible. And don't put off a mitzvah for later if you could do it now. And that is a concept that we have for all mitzvahs, that why put something off? We should not put something off if we could do it earlier. Because the reason makdimin lemitzvah. So wouldn't that be an argument to be made as to why couples, let's say they get married, that they should not put off the mitzvah approval because reason makdimin lemitzvah? And that's a valid point, but there is
that a strong argument?
Not as strong, because it's not in terms of asur versus, it's not asur.
Right.
It's just something, it's a mila to do that to try to be a zar is. But there is such a concept, there is such a halakhic concept, but it's not as strong as the issue that I raised before as to whether it's a bittul of the asay if you delay. So according to the way that we paskin in Shulchan Aruch, it would not be a bittul of the asay. But maybe it's still advisable not to delay because of reason makdimin lemitzvah. But what there is in this concept is the following. What will be if one were to delay in performing a mitzvah to a later time, if one were to delay, and by delaying, the mitzvah could be performed in a better way, in a more beautiful way than if you did it now. Do we say, is it better to do it now even though it won't be in the most beautiful way that it could be performed? Or should we say, no, better don't do it now, wait for the better moment, for the more beautiful moment, for the maximum moment where you could perform it in the best possible way? And here, the Trumas Hadeshen, who Rabbi Yisrael Isserlin, who lived in the 15th century, he wrote a tshuva, and it's interesting what he talked about because it's something that we wouldn't even think about too much, but it really it focuses on this very question. The question that he dealt with was with regard to Kiddush Levana. We go out every month, we sanctify the new moon, and the question was, is there a preferable time to perform this mitzvah of Kiddush Levana? What do I mean? So, when the moon becomes visible would be the earliest time that you could perform this mitzvah. And based on reason makdimin lemitzvah, if that's the earliest time, you should do it right away. Don't wait. But the Trumas Hadeshen said the following. He said, if one could wait until Motzoi Shabbos to perform this mitzvah, that would be preferred. Why Motzoi Shabbos? Well, everyone has bathed for Shabbos. Everyone is wearing their nice clothing. And this way, if they're all outside wearing beautiful clothing, their Shabbos garments, the mitzvah would be much more beautifully performed than if they did it during the week. So the Trumas Hadeshin says that would be preferable, even though Zriza Makdim and the mitzvah says do it right now. Let's say you could do it on a Tuesday. No, don't do it Tuesday. Wait 4 or 5 more days. Wait until Saturday night. And that's what shuls do if they can.
Yeah, so that's why shuls do this?
Yeah.
Huh.
Now, of course, the Trumas Hadeshin writes that's provided that you have enough days. If you're going to wait for Saturday night, what will be if Saturday night is a cloudy night and you don't see the moon? So then you have to have enough days afterwards so that if Saturday night turns out to be a cloudy night, that you could still perform the mitzvah, but provided that you have enough days after Saturday night to still say Kiddush Levana, then don't do it right away. Wait until Saturday night. And what you see from this Trumas Hadeshin is that Zriza Makdim and LaMitzvah is not automatic. It depends on what would be a more preferable time to perform the mitzvah. And if waiting, in this case until Saturday night, would make the performance of the mitzvah more beautiful, then that's the desired thing to do, and not to do the mitzvah right away. And the Shulchan Aruch paskins this way. If you take a look in the Shulchan Aruch, he says, "Ein mevorchen al hayoreach ela b'motzoi Shabbos kishehu mevusam uvgadov na'im." He says a person should not be Makadesh the Levana until Saturday night because he's wearing beautiful garments, and therefore the mitzvah would be beautified if it's performed then. So therefore the idea of Zriza Makdim and the mitzvah is limited. And if you want to relate it to the question about the mitzvah of Pru'avu, if you say to a couple, okay, you're married, start having children immediately. You're not ready. Finances are difficult. Psychologically, you're not ready. Well, if waiting some time will enhance the performance of the mitzvah, because as an aside, the mitzvah is not just having the baby. The mitzvah of Pru'avu is raising them, caring for them, providing a holding environment for them where the marriage is stable. It's not just having the baby, it's raising the baby. It's caring for the baby. So if waiting is better for this couple in terms of raising a child than based on the Trumas Hadeshin, then it would be better to wait than to rush into having children, even though you feel right now is not the ideal time to have it.
Right.
So I think that even Zriza Makdim and LaMitzvah has its limitations, and especially when couples come and they're interested in delaying. Obviously, something is going on with them that they feel they're not ready. And that to me says a lot, even if they're not able to articulate exactly what it is. If they want to delay, to me, that's a sign that for them, they need time. I mean, I think that as a rule, I feel that couples that get married should not have a baby the first year, just so that the two of them can get used to each other. How many marriages we know there are trouble right away, and if they have a baby right away, it creates a lot of problems. So I think that couples need time to adjust to each other, and they have to decide what is the right moment for them, because that right moment for them will help them, will help the child, will ensure that the child will be in a good environment, and that's critical. So I think that sometimes delaying could actually be preferred. And another issue, the last,
is there a limit to that? Like, do you say?
I'm sorry, what?
Well, 35 5 years, you gotta get the ball rolling, or
Well, obviously, we're talking about a couple who want to fulfill the mitzvah. I mean, if you're talking about somebody who doesn't want to fulfill the mitzvah, then there's nothing to talk about. Then we're not talking to those people.
is there advice that you give though? Let's say if we're telling people you don't need to ask your rabbi for this, is there
I'm
some
not
sort
there
of
yet. I'm not there yet.
Okay, oh sorry. Okay.
Okay, I haven't gotten there yet. So one last issue, which maybe I'll just quickly skip over, which is raised, is the issue of chayshinan lemisa, which means, should we be afraid that if you delay in the mitzvah, maybe you'll die, and then you won't be able to perform the mitzvah? Now, I don't know, whether statistically people have a premature death. I mean, I don't know what the statistics are here in America, but even putting that aside, now this issue about chayshin, should we be afraid that somebody will have a premature death and therefore not be able to fulfill a mitzvah? This is raised in Gemaras and by Rishonim. But the Netziv writes that this issue of being worried about a premature death only applies if through the death of one person, someone else would be adversely affected. But what will be if the death of the person doesn't affect anyone but himself? So the Netziv writes, what is the problem? I mean, if he hasn't fulfilled the mitzvah and then he dies suddenly, dead people are patur from mitzvahs. He's exempt. We're not going to hold him now, he's dead. So he's exempt from a mitzvah. So the Netziv, there's more to be said about this, but I wanted to move on because we're running late. So according to the Netziv, this issue is really not an issue. Because with regard to the mitzvah of pru'avu, if he dies before he's able to fulfill it, once he's dead, he's patur from all mitzvahs. But let's move on, though, to me, which is so important, and that is the role of the Rav. Now, the way I understand the way things are today, what's happening today is a couple gets married, and then they want to wait. They go to a Rav, and the Rav will give a heter, let's say for 3 to 6 months, maybe a little longer. And if after that amount of time passes, then they're supposed to have children, and if they want to have a further delay, then they have to come back to the Rav and get another heter. And that's the way it seems to be in the Orthodox world. And the question is that necessary? Is it advisable? Now, and this is the point that I made earlier, if a delay is permitted, and even if Zriza Makdim Mitzvah doesn't apply, then halachically, there is no reason why anyone has to ask a shaila. It's permitted. Mm-hmm. And if it was asur, then a Rav could not give a heter. This to me is the dilemma that I don't understand how Rabbanim can justify this, because if it's asur, they can't be matir it. If it's mutar, then you don't have to ask a shaila. So that's why I think that this whole idea of asking a Rav is not required. And also I just want to bring up, feeling that you have to ask a shaila when it's really permitted, I think takes away from a person's own personal autonomy. That's one thing that we haven't talked about. Being autonomous, being independent, feeling autonomous is extremely important. We don't, maybe because of my second profession, I'm very much, this is a very important issue for me. But feeling autonomous is very important. And in this area, it's such a personal, private area. I think it's so important for couples where it's halachically permitted to feel that they can make their own decisions, because only they know what is best for themselves. No one else can really know what is going on inside of them. And I just want to conclude with a very important tshuva of the Rivash that is also cited by the Ramah. The question was sent to the Rivash, this Rabbi Yitzchak ben Sheshes. He was one of the Rishonim. And the question was sent the following, that there was a young man who had not yet fulfilled the mitzvah of prurvu, and he wanted to marry an older woman who could no longer have children. She was a wealthy woman. He was interested in financial stability. She was interested in companionship. And they wanted to get married. And the community was up in arms. And they sent the Shaila to the Rivash to decide what should be done. And the Rivash wrote back that even though technically the community could, the Bezdin of the community could compel him not to marry her, he says the practice has been for generations not to interfere in all matters of marital relationships, and the language of the Rivash was ha'elimu einehem, that the practice has been for generations. He writes. I mean, the Rivash lived. He's 14th century. And he's saying that for generations, the practice has been not for Rabbanim not to interfere in marital issues. And they hid their eyes from what was going on. And even if the couple was doing something which was forbidden, for example, there's a halacha that says that if a couple has been married for 10 years and they're childless, they're supposed to get divorced. So the Rivash says the practice has been to look away, not to, as long as the couple are permitted to each other. No, it's not that a man married a woman that's forbidden to him. As long as they're permitted to each other, even if what they're doing is against halacha, the Rabbanim, when it came to marital issues, the Rabbanim looked away. And the Ramah writes this in Shulchan Aruch. He cites the tshuva of the Rivash, that Rabbanim should actually hide their eyes and look away from these kinds of issues. So to me, halachas kama v'kama, they should hide their eyes and look away when it comes to delaying procreation, which al pi halacha is permitted. And I think that when Rabbanim send out a message, at least my feeling is, where couples feel that they have to ask a shaila and they have to get a heter, otherwise they're doing something wrong. I think that is doing the opposite of what the Rivash and the Ramah are saying. I think that does put pressure. It is pressuring couples to do something that they don't want to do in marital areas. And that's why I think that Rabbanim should really remove themselves. Listen, if somebody wants to come and just asking advice and they want to discuss things as, for pastoral counseling, kol hakavod, that's wonderful. I'm not, but to think that you have to get a heter, I think in the spirit, based on the Ramah and the Rivash, the advisable thing is for the Rabbanim not to interfere, to let the couples make their own decision, to advise them if they come they want help in something, but only in terms of pastoral counseling. But as far as halakhic arbiters, I think that is not their role in this area. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you for the knowledge and the insight that you bring to the community. It's obvious that you're not only learning, but that you really care, and I think that we all appreciate that.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Everyone who's tuned in, thank you so much. The link to the article that Rabbi Kahn wrote will be in the description below you if you're looking at this on YouTube. If you subscribe to our email lister, we will include that in the email that goes out tomorrow. Additionally, you could find it on Yeshivat Chovevei Torah's website. Thank you so much. Make sure to keep following. And this is part 1 in a 2-series webinar about birth control and halacha. So thank you again, and Laila Tov.
Laila Tov. Thank you. Good night, everyone.